Hello, my name is Dustin Anderson. I'm a student at A.T. Still University in the Masters of Science in Kinesiology program. Today, I'll be talking to you about creatine. Specifically, we'll be talking about what is the purpose of creatine, proposed benefits from creatine use, possible side effects from creatine use, and recommendations for taking creatine, and closing remarks. So to start off, what is creatine? In this section, we'll be talking a little bit about background, the structures, and the pathways. So creatine is one of the most popular nutritional ergogenic aids. It was first discovered in 1832, and it gained mainstream popularity after the 1992 Olympic Games in Barcelona. It's been reported that creatine supplement sales are more than 4 million annually. So what is creatine? Creatine is in the phosphogenic family and is a naturally occurring non-protein amino acid compound found primarily in red meats and seafood. The majority of creatine is found in skeletal muscles, around 95%, with a small amount also found in the brain and testes. About 2/3 of intramuscular creatine is phosphocreatine, with the remaining being free creatine. The body needs to replenish about 1 to 3 grams of creatine per day to maintain normal creatine stores depending on muscle mass. About half of the daily need for creatine is obtained from the diet. However, larger athletes engaging in intense training may need to consume 5 to 10 grams per day of creatine to maintain optimal creatine stores. And in clinical populations, creatine consumption may have to increase to 10 to 30 grams per day throughout the lifespan to offset creatine synthesis deficiencies and or provide therapeutic benefits in various disease states. The primary metabolic role of creatine is to combine with a phosphoryl group to form PCR through the enzyme reaction of creatine kinase. This aids in the replenishment of adenosine diphosphate. When ATP is broken down, it forms ADP, and this inorganic phosphate allows ADP to get replenished into ATP, which is the body's primary energy source. Next, we'll talk about the effects and dose. So there can be a lot of confusion about creatine, so hopefully in this section I can add a little bit of truth to it. We're going to go over the good and the bad. The good, research has indicated that creatine supplementation may enhance post-exercise recovery, injury prevention, thermoregulation, rehabilitation, and concussion or spinal cord neuroprotection. When we're talking about sports performance, that's the main reason people would take creatine. You also see an increase in single and repetitive sprint performance, increased work performance during sets of maximal effort and muscle contractions, increased muscle mass and strength adaptations during training, enhanced glycogen synthesis, increased anaerobic threshold, and there's possible enhancement to aerobic capacity via greater shuttling of ATP from mitochondria, increased work capacity, enhanced recovery, and greater training tolerance. And when looking at the sporting environments, it's been proposed to increase PCR and increase PCR resynthesis, reduce muscle acidosis, and help aid in oxidative metabolism, and increase body mass and muscle mass. The bad, there's really not been any too concerning side effects from creatine supplementation. There has been some speculation of there's been some speculation that there's some negative effects from long-term use, mostly due with any type of renal failure. Some theories regarding the adverse effects of creatine have been, like I said, have proposed renal damage and difficulty maintaining hydration and a bloating feeling. Otherwise, creatine supplementation is fine. So dosing. Recommendations regarding dosing of creatine are varied. Like I said earlier, depending on the goals or your disease state can determine how much creatine you take a day. Moving forward for this next part, we're just going to assume This is for healthy individuals wanting to work out. It's recommended 5 grams per day is favorable. And sort of a supplementation protocol is in a normal diet that contains 1 to 2 grams per day of creatine. Muscle creatine stores are about 60 to 8% saturated. Therefore, dietary supplementation of creatine serves to increase muscle creatine or PCR by 20 to 40%. The most effective way to increase muscle creatine stores is to ingest 5 grams of creatine monohydrate for 4 times a day for 5 to 7 days. However, higher levels of creatine supplementation for longer periods of time may be needed to increase concentrations in the brain or offset creatine synthesis deficiencies or influence disease states. Once muscle creatine stores are fully saturated, creatine stores can generally be maintained by ingesting 3 to 5 grams per day, although some studies have indicated that larger athletes may need to ingest much more creatine, like I stated before. Final thoughts. Creatine seems to be a safe supplement. Creatine monohydrate is by far the most researched form of creatine in the literature. I think it would be safe for anyone to take. Just following that no more than 5 grams per day. Make sure you're well hydrated, and if you're taking any other thing that could dehydrate you, just make sure you're replenishing that water. It seems to be a safe supplement and has shown favorable results in gaining strength. Thank you for your time, and my references for this presentation are as follows.